Simon Loveseat, and I'm joined by Simon Horsfield. I don't think you can see him on the screen.
Hi, evening, Simon.
You're still there. So this is round one of the Seldén Sailjuice Winter Series, 2025-26, and courtesy of Navigators General, one of the most established insurance companies. Pleased to have Simon Horsfield, who has won this 3 times, haven't you, Simon? But, have you won the Draycote Dash?
No, I've been close. I think I've been second on certainly one occasion, and a great event, always a great event to kick off. And thankfully this year we were, fortunate to have 2 good days good days racing on the water. Albeit the first day was a little bit wet, Simon.
Yes, a big contrast. Yeah, but very wet on the Saturday and glorious on the Sunday. That was a classic winter racing. We'll come on to that in a minute, but I think what's interesting is that obviously so Tom and Rachel won it. They were defending the title of the Draycote Dash and defending the title of the overall series. But when we had a quick dip into the results, things were a bit all over the place, aren't they? So.
Yeah, it's very interesting, and yeah, Tom and Rachel pretty much have carried on where they left off last year, and a double on the dash, as you say, and a great start to defending their title. But yeah, I think the rain initially in the early morning certainly slowed people's arrival to the start line, and there was some noteworthy people missing or certainly late, and as a result, black flagged or for being late.
Yeah, so we see Peter Gray who ended up second. I think he missed the start, and there was a few other sort of top runners who were just weren't there. But it wasn't that the start was early, was it? So.
No, race officer set off on time. There was plenty of time, and I was sat in the powerboat, worried about where the fleet was, and yeah, definitely a few late arrivals. So one to watch. Race officer got off on time. So perhaps get out there 30 minutes before. Do a few practice beats and a few hoist and drops prior to the start. So I just think the rain put people off initially, and they were reluctant to get afloat, Simon. I think that's what.
All right. They were hoping for an AP, really, waiting for the sunshine, but could have been a long way. But I think what it showed was quite a lot of the sort of favourites had at least a bad start. I think I can unmute Matthew. But Matthew was in the snipe, and I think you won the last race, or the 4th race, wasn't it, Simon?
Yeah, and he was also black flag. So so if he hadn't got the black flag, I think he'd been much further. Cool. Yes. So quite a few people were affected by carrying a 94th. And had they been out earlier, I think there'd have been a lot of different positions on. Yeah,
but again, Rachel and Tom showing their consistency, and I think showing their hard work. You really see the pictures how hard they're working.
Yeah, absolutely. Every time you look around, the boat is absolutely flat. It's inside the shift lines. They're in clean air, and you can see that on the screen, it's reflected in a really great performance and defence of the title.
Right, okay, so we've got a few things we want to look at this evening, Simon, that you picked up. Talk us through the agenda.
Yeah, so it was super wet. In fact, it was monsooning, as we say at times. So I certainly have a look at some telltales and how to resolve that problem. I think 95% of the boats had telltales that were stuck to the sail, so we'll look at that. Coming into the windward mark. We'll have a little look at that and what we might choose to do and why we might choose not to do that. The course for the race I set was slightly skewed, and between marks 1 and marks 2 is a little bit broader than it normally is. So that presented some interesting decisions. What do you do? Do you jibe off at that mark or not? So we've got a little bit of video about that. Also, we've got a little bit on starting and what you might choose to do if you find yourself in a bit of a pickle. And we've got a good bit with a GP14 who has to bail at the start, which is good. And finally, we've got a little bit about the pursuit race, Simon.
Yep. Okay. So telltales. I think quite critical, wasn't it, on Saturday?
Yeah, absolutely critical. And as Tim and I were sat in the powerboat, we were just observing all the boats coming past the rib, and I say 95% of them. Their telltales and leach streamers were just rendered useless, and this is pretty much super easy to resolve, on a dry day in the dinghy park, or in the garage or on the lawn at home. So what you need to do is you need to get some McLube, or there are other brands available, some dry lube. And what you need to do is coat the telltale in dry lube, and also the circumference of the sail. So if you then having McLubed the telltale, you can then draw a circle around with the telltale itself, and that also needs to be dry lube so it doesn't stick to the sail. And if you do that, obviously on both sides and across all the telltales, they invariably don't stick. So that's the expensive solution to it. But being a bit of an older sailor, I generally use beeswax. So you can get this from any good dry suit shop. And we normally use it for zips on dry suits, and it's fantastic. And you can see on this picture here, this is actually my sort of like block of it. You can see the remnants of the wool from me pulling it back and forth trying to get the telltales. The thing with the wax is if you do it too much, it'll curl up like a German mustache. So you have to be a little bit careful. So do it sparingly. Less of a problem with the lube, although that's a more expensive option.
Yes, but I think made a difference on Saturday, Sunday. Well, it didn't really matter with the
no, if it's dry, it's fine, isn't it? It's only an issue if it's raining or you're swimming.
Yes, that's something that we picked up, isn't it? So the forecast, well, wasn't quite what we weren't expecting, was it?
No, I was chatting to a few of the guys in the dinghy park, and everybody was like, well, what do we set up for here? Because it's like 8 to 10 knots at the moment, maybe 12. And the forecast, I think, was something like, depending on where you looked, sort of like 15 to 30, 16 to 28. So, I guess people were thinking, well, we're set up for a windy one, but actually it never really got above 15, 16 knots.
On the Saturday.
On the Saturday. Sunday, subtly different. I think that was more like 18 to 25, Simon, although I wasn't there.
Yes, it was certainly much windy, and it was more southerly, so we were hitting some big gusts. I was up in the race box, and some quite drama in front of the club. Quite a few people went in. I think we saw the leading GP14 egging on a bit too much, and managed to drop quite publicly in front of the clubhouse.
Yeah, so it was very close, being offshore there, huge shifts. So when you're coming into the mark, you're fully committed and easy to fall in. Yes.
Right. Okay. So a bit about.
So yeah, I think the forecast was 15 to 30. So what do you how do you set your boat up? We had 4 races, so there was possibly an opportunity to go ashore on the lee shore because it was quite light to change the setup if you were in a double-handed boat. But how do you set your boat up? You might not all be in a Merlin or something that's fully adjustable. If you're in a traditional double-handed boat, it's much harder. So you've got to sort of like weigh up the odds. Clearly not a problem for a single-handed dinghy who can dynamically adjust things. But I sort of like work on the 75-25 rule from a double-handed point of view. And what I mean by that, as I mentioned last season, is 75% of the time you're going either across the wind or downwind. So if you set the boat up to go more downwind than upwind, you're going to make quite a lot more inroads. And certainly in my experience of the series, I always set the boat up to struggle upwind, but to make the maximum of the Great Lakes handicap downwind or off the wind, Simon. Yeah,
that's good. Nice picture. I think there's Robert Richardson here in the Musto, so one of the top Musto sailors out. Right. Okay. So we've got a bit of video coming up, haven't we? Let me just play that.
So, yeah, here this is Mark 1, I think, probably race 1, race 2. And we've got a lot of people who are overstood on the starboard ley line into the windward mark, and you can just see them all pretty much reaching in. And these are our skiffs, but this was apparent throughout the fleet. I've just chose to use the skiffs here. But in the background, and we'll rerun this again in a minute, you'll see Tom and Rachel in the Merlin, who are just coming around now, who have pretty much come up the beat inside the shift lines, and therefore, and we'll pay it back if you just watch we'll just watch the red Merlin come up. they're pretty much inside the shift lines, and therefore when we get to the windward mark, they're actually only on the ley line for a very short period of time, and therefore even if the boats come over the top of them, they're less affected, so they're less vulnerable to other boats coming in, really. And the theme was a lot of people were on the starboard ley line for an inordinate amount of time, which in a race where you're trying to beat the clock and get round as quick as possible, I think they were giving away some time, Sam.
Yeah, we'll play that again and then show the tracker thing. So here's the red boat coming in.
Yeah, and you see the tacked in here, and very short period of time, 8, maybe 10 boat lengths, something like that, and around they go, and not really affected by the K6 and the fireball that are coming up there. And even if so, it's only for a short period. And again, it's how can you keep out of trouble for as long as possible? Yeah. And again, I think the tracker shows it here. Everybody's coming in on the starboard ley line for quite a way.
Yeah, so they're high up, aren't they? So
yeah, and you can see the banana effect of them bearing away. This could have been intensified by a right-hand shift, but nevertheless, in fact, that's exactly the point. If a wind goes right and you're on the ley line, then you're always going to be reaching into the mark.
So yeah, so well done, Tom and Rach, for taking a good course there. Right. So now the other end of the course, I think.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, unusually it's quite deep coming into Mark 2, and we'll just watch this a couple of times. And there's just a little cluster of boats here. We've got a National 12, some Aeros, a laser. There's a whole mixture of boat at a 2000. So what do you do at this mark? And the key, I think, here is planning ahead. So you've got quite a long time down the reach from Mark 1 to Mark 2, and you've got to plan ahead. And if you've got your head out of the boat, and you're in and around some single-handers, well, immediately the single-handers are going to sail the run line, the shortest course downwind to Mark 3, so they're going to go low. So I don't want to be going low because they're going to affect me. So that would incentivize me to go straight on and not jibe, because I don't want to get entangled with them. So I might choose to go a little bit further and then jibe off into, if I want to jibe, I might then go 50, 75 meters, 100 meters maybe, and then jibe and come back, therefore being in clean wind. And as if we just watch for 2000 here, which is the key boat that as a spinnaker boat suffers from jibing basically, and ends up in a bit of a pickle. So they jibe because everybody else is jibing. They're now on port, and I think it's the laser behind is on starboard, so they have to go deep because the laser's just sailing its proper course down there, and it's all a mess. And ultimately, the 2000 has to jibe away. How much time have they lost versus if they'd sailed straight on? Those kind of decisions that have lost that boat 30 seconds, 40 seconds, and if you're doing that, once, twice.
And certainly when we follow, I haven't got it on the tracker, but when you follow later on the tracker, they basically lost all those places.
Yeah, absolutely.
Carry on down that leg, they've lost 5 places or so.
Yeah. So firstly, you want to plan ahead. Who's near me? What boat are they? What are they likely to do? Is it a symmetric boat or a single-hander? They're going to go lower. If it's an asymmetric, then you might choose that actually jibing off could be the right thing to do. So you just need to think about what is around you. The other interesting point is if you're coming down here, if the reach from Mark 1 to Mark 2 is getting tighter, then the wind has moved forward or is heading. So therefore, you want to stay on. So if it gets harder, not in this case, but if it gets harder, then you want to stay on. And if it gets broader, then you would choose to jibe. And that's, again, this plan ahead. So what are the boats around me? Is it lifting? Is it heading? What do I do at that mark? Overrided by what is my strategy to get to Mark 3 quickly. And finally, the other thing here in a fleet, if you do jibe, there could be another 60 boats coming down between Marks 1 and Mark 2. So if you jibe at the mark and you go across, you've got all the wind shadow of all those boats that have yet, are still coming down the reach. So this is another consideration. And ultimately, the only way you can sort of like process all this is to keep your head out of the boat. If you keep your head out of the boat, you're thinking about what's happening, and invariably you'll make the right decisions. But for what is, a simple leg, there's an enormous amount of things that could go wrong or could go in your favour. And I think, you know, possibly overlooked, Simon.
Yeah, definitely. Good point. Right. Okay. So what's this one? This is the start line, isn't it? I think is it race 3 or 4?
So this is race 4.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've got a couple of GPs though. So we've got Fergus in the dark blue boat, and we've got Jasper in the white coloured GP. Subtly different positions. One's a couple of lengths down, which is Jasper, and then you've got Fergus, who is pretty much committee boat end. In fact, definitely committee boat end. So that's up there, you know, looking for an opportunity. Unfortunately, in this case, the wind shifted right, and it had done actually for all the other 2 starts as well. So it was pretty much right. And the issue here for Fergus, and as we watch you back again in a moment, is that he has to sort of like defend against the aero that reaches down the line, and this happened on quite a few. There's a couple of great other examples of boats doing similar things in the fast fleet. So the aero comes in here, and inevitably that forces the GP to just push forwards a fraction, which, you know, doesn't help the situation in getting a clean start. You can see the aero coming in here now, so it just pushes forwards a little bit just to try to protect that gap. And now that little nudge up has not helped. So is it a bit of a situation here that he's got to bail out? So keep calm here, which Fergus does. Jives around. Yes, we've lost some places, but
I think he recovered it, didn't he?
Yeah, absolutely.
He
got
back in the race, didn't he?
He did. He went pin end, so committee boat end, and he tacked off with the wind being in the right. And if you look on the results, I think the GP, which had a great start, which was his dad, Jasper, finished 4th, and I think Fergus finished 6th. So, you know, it doesn't matter that it's gone wrong in this instance. It's all about recovering and not letting that affect you. So, you know, what you know, although it's a negative here, it's actually positive because he's bailed out, got back in, and then got a solid 6th. You know, which in a 90 boat race is a you know, in effect a banker. So, you know, we're showing what went wrong, but actually there's still a positive outcome, Simon.
Yeah, it wasn't the end of the world. He managed to dig deep and got back. Didn't go home. So yeah.
So I mean, you could argue
and they ended up 3rd overall, I think. So,
they did, yeah, absolutely. I mean, you could argue here if it had started a third of the way down the line, because the wind was always, I think, forecast to go right throughout the day, then that would have had the margin of error. But sat here, it's easy to do with hindsight, and you know, his plan was probably sound. It was just a little unfortunate, but well recovered.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So other problems that we encountered.
Yeah. So I wasn't there on the Sunday, but apparently it was well known that it was quite shallow. The water was super low. You know, it's been a warm summer, hasn't it? And the reservoir was low. And unfortunately, I think Tom Morris and Guy Fillmore in the 800, amongst others, Simon, ran aground.
Yeah, I think there was a few others who might be on the call. But, so apparently there is a shallow by Mark S. So there was a beat, obviously H to X, but that quite a few people took a sort of a flyer over there and managed to find that shallow, which you can see is actually marked on the board, but not in the sailing instructions. So I think this is one of those things where a bit of local knowledge helped. So we can see Tom and Guy track here. You can see that they've basically gone from about 10 knots to 0.45 a knot and are pivoting around that shallow near S, which caused the dagger board to be rammed into the boat, which was really game over for them, and they had to do some quite drastic action to actually get it out.
Yeah, and I think we were about 20 minutes to go, Simon. I think I'm right in saying we were 24th at this point.
So 24. Yeah, they were the fastest boat on the water, I think. 20 minutes to go. So probably could have edged up to the front of the fleet. They were second overnight. So unfortunately, this sort of blew the event for them because it's a non-discardable pursuit. I think that's the other thing to recognise. And by taking that flyer to the right, they unfortunately found the shallow.
Yeah, and you know, some of the boats take a subtly, certainly the fastest skiffs take a different route to most of the boats. So more of the conventional boats may have not encountered this, but with the skiffs with a kite up might have had a sort of.
Well, no, they're going upwind on this.
Going upwind. No, sorry.
So yeah, they're beating H to X.
So fortunately, yeah, because I wasn't there. Yeah, fortunately, it much better to be going upwind rather than at 10 knots rather than downwind at 18, isn't it? So
well, yeah.
Thankfully, they didn't hit it at 18 knots.
Yeah. So they managed to get home. I think they had to use a hammer to get the dagger board out. So, but I think that the message is, well, as you say, ask the locals of it.
Yeah, it is, and yeah, I mean, I was sort of aware of the yellow buoyed area, but yeah, I think ask for locals, and maybe maybe could have been put in the SIs or something just to be a bit more highlighted. But you know, that's sailing; these things happen, and
and I think in the future it will be more thing, but
yeah,
it was actually on the chart on the board, so it was actually was sort of. It was presented in some form, but perhaps a bit too subtle. And I think for the bigger boats, these things happen, don't they?
Absolutely.
Right. Can you just give us a summary then before we?
Yeah. So I think as I said at the beginning, I think 95% of the fleet had telltales that weren't readable, and of course that makes a huge difference. Yes, we can feel where the wind is as we get experience, but certainly helps to have the ability to know what the airflow is with the streamer off the back of the mainsail or the back of the jib, and have the telltales working. So yeah, just dry lube them up or get some beeswax really, and 99% of the time that really is effective and works, and you just do it periodically. So definitely a top tip, I think. Yeah. Particularly for this event, on a trapezoid course, have you got your boat set up for the right conditions? And again, I think that goes for the pursuit race. How many legs are upwind, how many legs are downwind? Where do you think your biggest gains are going to be? And set your boat up to give you the best possible chance of success. Sail the shortest course, really. It goes without saying, really, but you don't stay a long time on a shift lines. If you're a skiff, that might be the absolute right thing to do because tacking in an 800 or a Musto is super slow. But if you're in an Enterprise or a GP or an Ilka, then sailing the shortest course is definitely going to be the best way to go for you. Thinking back to all over the course, really plan ahead. Where's the traffic? How can I navigate that traffic? And I think I said last year, that's at windward marks, it's at wing marks, it's at leeward marks. What is the likely course your competitors are going to take? And as much as we might like them for a pint in the bar, we want to avoid them when we're on the racetrack. Sailing is super difficult. It's one of the hardest sports there is, and keeping calm is a challenge for all of us, and occasionally we all have a sense of humor failure, but if something hasn't gone your way, stay calm because that'll give you the best possible chance of recovery. And in this case we just showed one. We could have showed several others who have recovered from a bad situation and got a banker. And final thought really, Simon, is ask for locals. Where are the shallows? I think.
Yeah. Well, and other local knowledge, I think, and certainly people are aware of those big gusts over the hills, which perhaps the visitors may not have quite appreciated. So there's a few local things that came out, always the way, isn't it? But everyone's, I think, quite amicable of talking about these things, isn't it? So I don't think anyone's hiding them. So get to talk to a local, get to find out where they're going. Right. Okay. So before we wrap up, I don't know if there's anyone got any questions. You want to jump in, any of the guests? On the chat box. No. Okay. I don't think that's. But I think great to have 5 races. I think actually great to have a lot of learning points. I think that was my takeaway, isn't it? It's so many things came up over the weekend, didn't they? But,
yeah, absolutely, and fantastic to have 2 good days of racing. When we reflect back on last year, it was a light win to this year. We've got off to a great start, Simon, with albeit a little bit wet, but we got 4 solid races in, and then windy, blasting blue skies on the second day. So
yeah, great start. Because if we remember, we had to cancel this time last year because one of the storms was coming through. So yeah, great to fit in there. And then just finally looking ahead for 2 weeks' time, we've got the Datchet Fire, similar but not quite the same format as this one.
No, so 3 races on day 1, I believe, Simon, in the same format. So trapeze.
Yeah, there'll be back-to-back trapezal. 2 or 3 starts, depending on numbers. Probably slightly different that the slow boats will probably start first. So again, to mix things up, because interesting, look at the results from Saturday. There was a race, I think, where the slow boats did quite well because they only did sort of 20, 30 minutes of racing. So it does sometimes good to mix it up.
Yeah, absolutely, and also a bit of a subtle change to the pursuit race on the Sunday, Simon, with a split fleet. So the slow and fast fleet will be split, and in effect, the pursuit race will run normally, but there'll be 2 winners, Simon. I believe I'm right in thinking.
That's right, and it's a bit of a Datchet innovation, but the logic being is that it gives everyone more time in the water. So you've got sort of 800s or even moths. They're only like sailing around for half an hour sometimes. So by actually referencing a faster boat, so the fast fleet may be like a Phantom or something like that, it will give them possibly twice as long on the water, and then we just join the results up. So we 2 winners, 2 seconds, and so forth. So still a pursuit race, but I think it just mixes up, and I think that's the great thing about some of these events. They're all subtly different. They're not all the same. So it shows that you've got to be good across a wide range of venues and courses and formats.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and looking forward to it and see how that unfolds in results on the 7th, Simon.
Yeah. I think we've got quite a few of them Draycote appearing there, so I think we start to see some of the results evolving and start doing some of the rankings and extracting them and so on. Right. Okay. Well, if no one's got any questions, I think we'll call it a night. I think that's 30 minutes, Simon. That's what we aim to do. So well done on keeping on time, and we'll catch up with anyone in just over 2 weeks.
Thank you very much.
Okay, good night.